So in the story, Who Moved My Cheese, I definitely feel like I'm the most similar to Hall. Um, I think earlier in my life I would have said him. I used to be very scared of change, very scared of any change. You know, the fear of the unknown, not knowing what's to come, and a lot of times that was to my own detriment. But I feel now I'm more willing to change. But I still feel like Hall in the fact that I let some of the people that I've become close to maybe keep me back from some positive change. Things I know would benefit me. I let other people influence me there and keep me from progressing forward. Um, so in the story, you know, it's centered around Ha, obviously. So his relationships are more clear than the mice, for example. So Ha, he had a very strong tie to him, and because of this, he allowed him to influence his decisions. If he had a weaker tie, like he did to the mice, he had a very weak tie with the mice. So if he had that weaker tie with him, him wouldn't have been able to influence his decision, just like the mice leaving didn't influence his decision. But as time progressed, he started the relationship between him and Hall began to deteriorate naturally due to incompatible values. They saw differently. Hall thought they should move on, and him disagreed. He didn't hold that same value. So because of those incompatible values, the relationship ceased. And you can see that after Hall left, Hem really avoided him. Hem didn't chase after him. He didn't want anything to do with Hall. Even when Hall returned with cheese, Hem didn't like it. Hem was avoiding talking to him. You know, they could have compromised a little bit more. You know, Hem might have found more cheese and been more willing to move on, but he wasn't. So they had a lot of dialectical tension there because of these different values, these incompatible values. They argued a lot about whether or not to move on or not. So like I said, so Hall, he had a very weak tie with the mice, Sniff and Scurry. You know, they were very willing to change, and he just wasn't in the beginning. And I feel like that's where I'm at right now too. Is I'm not always willing to change at first, but once that change happens, which is why I said earlier that I feel the closest to Hall is once the change happens, you know, you look back on your previous self and realize you wish you'd have done it sooner. You were wasting time. You know, you could have found that cheese. You could have found what you were looking for if you'd have adopted to the change sooner than you did. So back to Hall's relationship with the mice. You know, the relationship really wasn't there. There wasn't a lot of rules to follow in that relationship. They didn't have a close relationship. They didn't have the social penetration. So they would have had that, then they would have had that social penetration, then Hall might have listened to him a little better and changed sooner. He would have been more prepared for change and would have changed sooner with the mice. But because he had that social penetration with him instead of the mice, he let him influence his decisions more. That was his own fault. You know.